Hi, everyone. This is the May community meeting for OpenFGA. Thanks for being here. We have, as usually, a few things hopefully interesting things to share and a couple of things to discuss with you. And so the way we usually start this meeting, so this is the agenda we have. It's usually the same. We start with some introductions in particular, if there's new people in the call that wants to introduce themselves and share what they've been doing with FGA and the things we shipped, some demos, things we're planning to do, some community news and QA. So this is us. If you see, I think today most of the participants are from the us team, so from the OpenFGA team, and it's usually not the case, but today it seems like that's what happened. And the other news here is that we will be hiring. So if someone wants to join us, let us know. We'll be hiring in US, Canada, and Spain. So please reach out to me in the CNCF Slack if you want to help us with OpenFGA and be part of this slide the next time. Okay, good. So in general, we do this in particular for new members. If you want to share, and if not, it's fine too. Like, what do you do, and why are you interested in OpenFGA, and if you have already started using it, how did it go? That will be great. And so I make some space for you to present yourselves if you want.
Sure. My name is Prakash Satyani, and I'm from India, and I am currently working as a project manager with Motorola Solutions. Mm-hmm. And how we got into OpenFGA is that so we have multiple products which are using multiple authorization systems, which are tailor-made, but it's not like if one product is using something, the other product has to adhere to their authorization system kind of. So we wanted a centralized kind of an authorization system where product can they can come in, they can define their own models, they can create their own policies and then use this the capabilities of fine-grained access using OpenFGA. So yeah.
Perfect. Interesting. So how far are you in the project? Do you have it just started? You have something that is already implemented?
Not implemented, but yeah, we have modeled many of our use cases, and so far we are working on a POC, which probably will complete in a few weeks. And cool. After that, maybe we'll start implementing it, for our existing systems.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Yes.
Sure. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I guess I'll introduce myself. I'm Devin. I work at Reed with Andrew here, and just
cool.
More context. We use it internally, and yeah.
Awesome. Nice meeting you, Devin. I don't know if Ishan's AI note taker is a real person or not, but maybe we find out during the meeting. Okay, good. So a few things we shipped. We shipped modular models. The last meeting we demoed it, and we were about to ship it. Now it's already there. So you would use it in general if you have like models that are maintained by multiple teams, and each team maintains their own piece of the model. I've been started seeing questions in the forum, in the Slack channel, about people asking questions about that. So that's good. This implies people are using it, which is great. So the other thing we have is we shipped a release candidate of this API called ListUsers. We're gonna demo it today in a more full-fledged state. But yeah, it's in the OpenFGA. It's implemented in the CLI, Visual Studio Code, in the test runner, and also in most of the DKs by Python. And then we also added a command to the CLI that lets you export a store. So it will get you kind of on the model, the assertions, if they are there as tests, and the tuples with a limit of number of tuples if you want, to a YAML file. so you can kind of easily extract it and share it with us when you need help to debug a problem with OpenFGA. So so we're going to demo a few things. We're going to start with list users. Will have been sharing a few things in the last few meetings, but now he can demo the complete experience. So I'll pass it to him.
Well, thanks, Andres. Let me share. Well, you should be able to see my code editor. We demoed it this last month, but just as a refresher, list users is a new API. It answers the question of what users are related to a specific document or resource based on a certain relation. So some use cases are, I can see on the right, a shared dialogue that might be familiar for you if you use Google Sheets. Another use case that we've seen is notifying users on document edit. So just being able to know what users are, all the users associated to a specific document. So as Andres mentioned, this is available as a release candidate. It's mostly complete. We're figuring out a couple of minor things, but broadly speaking, it's ready to start testing in an experimental capacity. So we definitely encourage you to give it a go. So let me demo. First of all, I have OpenFGA running. I'm using Docker Compose, but the important part here is that we have the list users enabled via this experimentals flag. So just so you know, that's prerequisite to getting this working. It's an opt-in feature. So I have that running down here. You might see some traffic, but to start off, just demoing how it works. We have this model, pretty simple. We have a user, we have a document, and a viewer of a document can either be a user or a group member user set. I've already created the model and the store ID. And so let me show you list users. So list users is available from this list users endpoint. It should resemble, it's very familiar if you already use list objects. And we accept a user filter, which is the terminal type that you want to target your results to be. Currently, this is we only accept one type of user at the result, but this could expand to more. We also require you to specify the resource as well as the relation. So if we run that, we see that we don't have any users, and that's because we don't have any tuples in the system. So let's add some tuples here. So let's add 3. We have viewer, user Will is a viewer of document 1, so is Maria. And then we have user Andres, who's a viewer of document 2. So we can write that with this set of commands. So we can run that same curl, and we see that we get a couple results. However, we've vertically integrated this with the FGA CLI, so you don't need to curl the endpoint. We have a new command. We have the query list users command, which is just adds more ergonomics to the process. So same thing, we specify use document 1, the type that we're specifying, or the type that of the terminal type that we're targeting for results, as well as the relation. So if we run that, we see that we get user Will and user Maria, which is as we expected. And if we change this to document 2, we'll see that we get user Andres. Just kind of building off this example a little bit, showing that the power of list users. We say that we also have these tuples as well. So we have a engineering group with members of Maria and Jacob. So, and then engineering group members are viewers of document 1. So if we write these tuples, we will see that we FGA query list users. If we make the same query to document 1, we'll see that we now get user Jacob as well. And because user Maria has a direct relation as well as the membership to the engineering group, she is deduplicated. There's only one result coming back. So the point being is that list users will expand upon the groups and find the terminal types associated with that group too. And just showing off the user filter, now that we've seen the users expanded, we can also specify group members. So we can just find all the group member user sets associated with document 1, and we'll see that we have the engineering group. So you can specify, what I call the granularity, but more the proper terminology is the user filter. So yeah, that's showing off the new list users command on the CLI. And another call out is the testing command. So this, if you use FGA tests currently, this should be familiar, but this is the same example, but just encoded in a YAML file, and that we've added a list users section for you to apply these assertions. So we can run that and clear it out. And so this is the exact same set of tuples and the model as the example before, but if we run FGA model test, we'll see that all of our tests are passing. So, and we also, as a cross-reference to check, we check that all the users that are returned from the list users response are actually authorized. And one additional call out before I wrap up, but this is also a good VS Code demo. So there is a good amount of code highlighting and validation here. So for example, if you mistype list users, you will see that you get some validation here, as well as if you mistype a user type, say you type employee instead of user, you will get this code highlighting kind of helping you out. But yeah, that's about it. Back to you, Andres.
Awesome. Thank you, Will. So next demo, I want to switch to my slides. So Daniel has been working on a Shedbrains integration with the Shedbrains IDEs. We started from a project that another member of the community started, Jan, who is not here today. And we took his code, we worked with him, and we kind of iterated on it. And we have something that is closer to be able to ship. I think the repo, I hadn't made it public, but it's kind of close to be available in the OpenFGA organization. So Daniel, or yours. You're muted.
Thank you for that. Sorry. Hopefully everybody can see my screen. So this is like straight out of the box IntelliJ syntax and grammar highlighting. We've got it available both for model files and also store files. You'll see that the same syntax highlighting showing up. This is nice as well. IntelliJ's grammar and syntax engine allows you to do quite intuitive syntax checks. So if your grammar doesn't match the grammar files, it'll show up without you needing to dig. It'll be nicely highlighted. Along with the syntax highlighting, we've also got our own special theme. So if you go to themes, take the OpenFGA, and you've got that kind of classic look that we've got for VS Code as well. These were the main kind of features that I worked on to get out. To see they work both for store and model. Jan had already, who was the original author of the IDE extension, added a few other little like snippets and a command for generating JSON authorization model. So these aren't mine, but they're going to be part of the initial release. So we're kind of edging our way towards almost identical behavior between VS Code and IntelliJ. But right now, you got your syntax highlighting, your syntax checker, grammar assertions, and the ability to generate a JSON from your FGA model. I think that's just looking at my notes. Yeah, that's the kind of key parts of the functionality that's currently available.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Daniel. And then the next demo will be from Ewan. This is more a hackathon project he did, and hopefully we're going to be able to ship it at some moment. And but I just let him show it, and so without me spoiling it.
Awesome. Yeah, so you should be able to see VS Codes with a store file. Let me know if it needs bumping up size-wise at all. So as Andres mentioned, we had a hackathon internally at Okta about a few weeks ago now, I think it was. And I wanted to focus on kind of some improvements to the tests that you currently write in a store file. So we'll kind of show these off earlier. You have check and list objects. It doesn't have list users because that went RC recently, and this is before list users. So you run these tests, as Will kind of showed, using the FGA model test command, and you provide your store file. So I decided to explore using Cucumber or Gherkin syntax to write these tests. So you can see here that I've kind of ported the in corporate network check and list object into this syntax. So we have a background, which is kind of the tuples that would be in the system at that time. And then we have each individual kind of test case. So here we're checking the user access document. We can provide some context, and then we can check permissions. So currently, it's probably going to change when we get around to shipping it. But you provide these features on the CLI with a -- features, and it looks pretty much identical. But the cool thing is, because we're using a project called Godog, which is kind of the Cucumber project for Golang, to do this, we get a lot of things for free. So we can do a JUnit report that would allow us to integrate, or allow developers to integrate kind of with a CI system, Jenkins, or somewhere that ingests a JUnit report to track test cases. We can also, because these are pretty predictable, to write this, I kind of used the output of the command pretty much. We can actually generate the Cucumber tests from the YAML itself. So we can apply that JUnit report into the store file tests. So without any extra work for the store file, pretty much, we get this Cucumber support. What's happening kind of is we're taking this YAML, generating the Cucumber syntax on the fly, and then running that in the background. So we're not kind of we're changing the entire test runner, kind of. So yeah, that's pretty much it. There's not much else. There's, to kind of show you what I mean by the running it on the fly, there's this pretty reporter that kind of shows what we are running. So even when running a YAML file test, we're converting it into Cucumber syntax to then run. And that's it. There's not huge much else. As Andrew says, not really sure when we might land this. It's in a branch currently if anyone wants to try it. If you have some store files with tests, then feel free to check the branch out, install from that branch even, and give it a try and provide any feedback. I'll provide the link in the Zoom chat shortly.
Awesome. Thank you. And so for the next one is one that is John's hackathon project, but John is not here, but he recorded his hackathon demo for the team, so I'm gonna play it. It's also pretty cool. And let me see if I now can share my screen again.
Little time to work on pluggable data stores
Works.
today for the hackathon. Wanted
Yep,
to show you
works.
the progress I've made. So down here on the bottom screen, you can see an OpenFGA contrib repository, and inside of that, I added a storage.
So let me add a little context, because if not, you're gonna understand anything. So what John is trying to do here, he's trying to. So today we have multiple data adapters. So one for Postgres, one for MySQL. We have one internal that we haven't open source yet that we will, which is for DynamoDB. And we have people asking us for contributing SQLite adapters, SQL Server adapters. And for the team in general, it's hard to accept a contribution because we are not in the hook to maintain it forever. So we're trying to find a way to let customers implement components of OpenFGA that they can plug into the store, to the server, and that without us being the ones in general being responsible for owning and maintaining that code, right? So here we are trying to do is doing that for a data store adapter for SQLite. That is what John is trying to demo here.
Storage package, and inside of the storage package there is a SQLite implementation. So if we go over and we look at what that looks like, the SQLite package defines an implementation of SQLite for the OpenFGA data store and an implementation of a SQLite driver, which a driver, in this case an OpenFGA data store driver, is anything that defines an open method. So you can give it a connection string and it returns an OpenFGA data store implementation. As far as the SQLite plugin itself, every OpenFGA plugin has to define this init plugin method, and it takes a plugin manager from OpenFGA and it uses that plugin manager and it registers an OpenFGA data store. So in this case, we're registering SQLite and we're passing in that SQLite driver, which provides an implementation of returning an OpenFGA data store implementation. So this is the driver. This is the code that the community would be writing, for example, when they want to register new data stores. Over in OpenFGA, we have this plugin manager thing, and the plugin manager defines registration or discovery methods for plugins. So the first one we've added to the plugin manager is registering an OpenFGA data store. All this OpenFGA data store registration function does is it calls the register function on the underlying internal OpenFGA storage package. And this is a very similar pattern. I just drew this pattern directly from the standard Go library, the SQL database package. So it's a very common pattern, very common usage pattern across this community. So let's go ahead and kind of jump in. Here we can build OpenFGA. Let's go ahead and build, wow, there we go. We're gonna build this version of OpenFGA. Down here, we will build our SQLite plugin. So go build our SQLite plugin. So we'll build that as a Go plugin and output it to a shared object file, which will link into our Go binary, or will load, sorry, at runtime. So up here, we'll now run the OpenFGA server and we'll tell it where to load the plugins from. So in this case, we're gonna load the SQLite plugin from that directory. And then we're going to tell OpenFGA to use that SQLite data store engine. So we're completely loading a data store engine that OpenFGA knows nothing about. It's loaded in dynamically at runtime. So we'll go ahead and run that. You'll see, we see an output statement here that says loading plugins from that directory, and then it says that plugin file was loaded, and it's using the SQLite storage engine, and we're up and running. So if you look at the implementation of SQLite, it's not a very solid implementation yet. It basically just returns errors for every method that is part of the interface. But if you come down here and you look at the implementation of max types per authorization model, it currently returns 0. So let's go over to Postman and let's try to write an authorization model, and notice we get an error back from the SQLite storage engine saying that the number of type definitions exceeds the limit of 0. So I know that SQLite isn't implemented. The goal wasn't to implement SQLite. The goal was to get the initial plugin and storage registration engine working, and it is working. So we've officially plugged in dynamically at runtime an external SQLite data store adapter from the OpenFGA contrib repository. So awesome progress today. Tomorrow I'm going to try and work with Jose to get middleware registration working as well. So going back to the plugin manager can define other registration methods like register middleware, and we can register OpenFGA middleware. So we can also extend the kinds of plugins that we can load to go beyond just data stores. We can also load in middlewares and other kinds of runtime things that we want to modify the server's behavior. Thanks, guys.
Okay, good. I don't know if it was if it helped or not. It was a little technical, and unless you're willing to extend OpenFGA, maybe it's not that interesting. But and he mentioned at the end that he was thinking of also extending the middlewares. I'm gonna and then he was going to work with Jose on that. He did, but I won't show you the demo. I would explain how it works in a future slide, in the next slide, when with specific use case. So this was this, and I think we are done with demos. Now go, just sign out. Great. So I need to sign in again. Okay, perfect. Slideshow. Okay, so this is what we have today. So this is what this is the Cardinal next. We usually show this where we are working now and we're not working next. You've seen the JetBrains integration and ListUsers. We've also demoed in the last few meetings how we are working on simplifying search with permissions for scenarios where you have a lot of documents or resources. We keep working on that, but we haven't made a lot of progress in the last month. And then we are working, and so I want to mention a few things about what's coming next. One will be we are going to be adding like a open telemetry to SDKs, so you can have like a metrics on your side, for example, to understand RPS, latency, or things like that from the SDK side. Tracing that will be more interesting in some OpenFGA scenarios. And then the other two, I'm gonna describe them now and get some feedback if you have any questions or comments. So the first one, which is very simple, is today we have an option in the server, which is you can enable caching or not enable it, but you don't have a way to, when you enable cache, to decide, I want to make this query without using the cache, because for some reason I want to have more consistency, right? So we're gonna add a flag to check and list objects and now list users to do this. It's going to be called higher consistency because, as we mentioned, we also have an implementation for Dynamo where we cannot do a strong read. So it's not that we can still keep the cache, right? So it will be higher consistency than what we have today, but maybe not strong, right? Depending on the database, it could be a strong consistency or not. So we wanted to keep it that way. So, and the behavior will be depending on the database storage, what you can do. For example, if in the future we support or we have like this in the box a way to support like a Postgres with read replicas, right? This one would always read from the master replica, right? So you know, like you can read your writes and with lower latency. So depending on the implementation, the behavior can be different. And then the other one is we were talking about additional authorization options. We wanted to build this on top of the modular models features we just shipped, right? And the way we plan to do is something like this. So we're going to use FGA for implementing authorization for FGA APIs calls, right? And this is the model we would use. So it will be something like for an FGA OpenFGA installation, you have multiple stores, right? Each store can have multiple modules, so the module belongs to a store, right? And then we have an application, which will be the API key that you are using today to call the application or the client ID if you're using the auth integration, right? So the idea is that in each store, you're going to be able to decide for each application if they can write tuples, read tuples, or write models. Okay, so you will say this credential can only read, can only write, I can only or could only write models, and then we have a permission for each API that based on the role they have in the role of the application in the store, the actions they could do in the store, right? For example, can call check, can call read, whatever API called will depend on these permissions we set here. But then we're going to have also permission per module, which are going to say this application is a writer for a specific module. Okay, so the idea is that the example we usually give here is you're in Atlassian, you have Confluence and Jira, right? So the Confluence app cannot write tuples for the Jira module, right? So they shouldn't be able to say, I don't know, this ticket is not linked to this project or something like that, right? So the idea we have permissions for each application in each module. And then, so if you have things like this, like you're going to be able to say, okay, this application is a writer in the module core from store one. This application is a writer from the module wiki in store one. The application is a writer in the module issue tracker for store one. Right? And then FGA is going to check those, and we're going to have each application will have different permissions on the actions they can perform on the OpenFGA store. I don't know if it makes sense. It's clear, or do you think, Andrew, you will have a use case for this, like having different applications with different permissions in Read AI or not? Or you have a single application today mostly that can do everything?
We have multiple application. We have like multiple services, but really only one of those services manages authorization.
Okay.
So like, for example, like our front door service does all of the authorization, and it kind of like manages the authorization for data in like the metric service where sort of like the analytics data is actually stored. So in theory, we could have, and we've talked about having the metric service communicate directly with OpenFGA, but we just haven't needed to do that yet.
So the only scenario here that this could be useful, and it will be today, the credentials you have to call OpenFGA, right? Will let an application change a model, for example, right? And that is not something you will want to happen with the application credentials. You want to have like a CI/CD credential to do that, right? So in that case, if you care about that, you might define two secrets, right? And have one for the application and another one for the CI/CD. So that's the one who can publish a new model, right? So to prevent anyone to make a mistake and update their model without one. Okay, makes sense. And then in your case, the application that lets you change permissions, right, and write tuples is the same one that does the checks, right? So you don't have like a one module to write permissions, another one to it's the same thing. Okay, makes sense. Anyway, so this is something we've seen a lot of customers kind of doing this in an API gateway, right? So they get a call, and then depending on the credential and the permission, they let use do it or not, right? To prevent scenarios like this when you don't want to have an application do what they shouldn't be doing. So this will avoid, it will kind of build that feature inside of the OpenFGA. And what Jose and John built as part of the hackathon is integrate this with a middleware in OpenFGA, right? So you can kind of, as part of that middleware, check if the user has permission to make a call to the API using FGA. And that's something that we were kind of thinking, which is if someone wants to use this, so we have an FGA store. The FGA store has that has this data, right? And there are two ways of managing this data that you have here. One is using the APIs from FGA to write and delete tuples, right? And that implies that in runtime, you can enroll more and new applications or delete applications with different permissions, right, to the store, or use it as configuration, right? So when you start a server, you already know the credentials you have, the permissions they have, right? So we're also probably going to explore both options and see which one makes more sense. I kind of lean towards the one that this configuration, and when you run the server, you have the client credentials and permissions as part of the configuration. But we'll see what we learn when we build in this. Any more questions about this one?
Yeah, another way that I could see us using this is like we could have a module that's for like user account level permissions, and have a service that like is permitted to edit that model, and kind of separate that from the parts of the model that are like related to like data, you know.
Yeah, that's a common, like, that's one of the examples we have here. They will be like the core thing, right? So when we talk about core, it's more about, you have user groups, roles that are global across multiple modules of the application potentially, right? And if you have multiple services, you don't want that service to write up to the other one because they should, right? So it's kind of, if you're doing the right thing, it's fine, right? But if you want to make sure they cannot do it, something like this can help. Right?
Yeah, we wouldn't want like the data authorization piece to be able to make a user an admin, you know?
Yeah, right. So they shouldn't be doing it. So that will be like the scenarios. And if you have that scenario, right, would you think that you will have like you will have these permissions like in a configuration with OpenFGA as part of the configuration from OpenFGA? So you have a file like this, like a YAML file with saying application 1 can do these things, application 2 can do these things, and deploy that as part of the server, or you expect more than you will call the FGA APIs to enroll new applications or to change permissions?
I'm not sure.
Okay, so when we this is something that we will learn as a community what makes more sense.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's still as on OpenFGA store, it's going to be there, right? It's more that if you want to initialize it as part of loading FGA, OpenFGA, right? Or if you want to just have it there and you call APIs to manage that, right? Eventually, if you do it with configuration, we could just block the APIs, so you cannot write to that store, right? And from outside, it's just kind of nobody will have permissions, but only the FGA server when you load the server. Anyway, that's something also to explore and learn more. Okay, so a few things, community news, and so we're going to be presenting in Seattle, right? So Andrew, if you are close to Cloud Native Security Con in June, I think we'll be part of the keynote too, but we'll be presenting on a collaboration we did with a project called with a company called StackLock. They have an open source product called Minder that they're using OpenFGA to make authorization there. So Maria is going to be there presenting, and something we did that if you're interested, we will love to get help there is, so we have this sample stores repo, which has a lot of common examples, and we keep adding more. There's a lot of open source projects in GitHub that are using OpenFGA. So we linked there to different models defined by those projects, right? If anyone has an open source project, or if anyone wants to contribute to with an example model that kind of simplifies the use case you have internally, right? But you want to edit other people to look at it to help the community in some of those scenarios, feel free to let us know, or to just submit a PR with an example here. These are usually very useful for new people joining the projects, seeing some examples that are close to what they want to solve, right? So they take it from there and they build on top. And and if you haven't joined our CNC Slack, that's where we are engaging with the community now. So please join. And I think this is the last slide. So I don't know if anyone has any comment or question. We have some time now to go through them. Okay, thank you very much. And we'll see us hopefully in a month with more fine-grained news.